Revenge with Joanne. The first red flag wasn't the missing money. It was the silence that followed it. I was standing by the window of my place in Boise, Idaho, barefoot coffee cooling in my hand, when I opened my Q3 retirement statement. Zero company match. Zilch. After 17 years with Millridge Logistics, it was like the last quarter of my career had been erased. I stared at the screen stunned. Maybe it was a fluke. Maybe payroll had a glitch again. I've seen worse, like when someone once got paid double and HR just let it ride. So I gave them the benefit of the doubt. That's what you do when you've been trained to trust the system. I emailed HR, just noticing the employer match is missing. A response came 2 days later from someone named Logan, someone who signs emails with lowercase letters and puts human first strategist in their title. We appreciate you flagging. Should clear up next cycle. That emoji hit harder than the missing funds. Another week. No retro deposit. No explanation. Just another bubbly update. All good now, thanks for your patience. When HR emails are overly cheerful, something's usually dying. Still, I didn't yell. I didn't storm into the break room. I just sat in my Honda that Friday morning watching the sunrise, reflect off a windshield chip shaped like a lightning bolt, and said out loud, "Don't do this to me. Not now." 17 years. I'd survived 4 CEOs, a server room, flood 2 software overhauls, and even that disastrous wellness app rollout that nearly exposed our payroll data. I'd personally trained most of the accounting team and once fixed a forecasting bug while recovering from shoulder surgery. And now, a 20-something with a Pinterest quote in their email footer decided I wasn't worth a match. So I did what exhausted, experienced women do when pushed too far. I stopped hoping for justice. I opened Excel. Tab 1 match deposits by year. Tab 2 names, emails, response times. Tab 3 contact list titled Plan B. Oh, and if you're one of the 97% watching but haven't subscribed, do it now. It helps keep this channel going and the coffee flowing. Joanne out. Let's see who blinks first. Third tab, Employee Equity Handbook. Because buried somewhere in those 52 pages of corporate jargon and outdated clip art, I remembered a clause from orientation. Something about alternative contribution channels. Something HR clearly never read. 2 nights later, I was curled up on my couch in Boise glass of Merlot in one hand, my rescue cat purring like a tired generator on my lap when I found it. Employees may allocate up to 15% of post-tax income through Subchannel B into discounted equity pending executive approval. Subchannel B wasn't linked on the portal, hadn't been in the onboarding packet since 2018, but it still existed. And my approval flag still marked active. You know what HR doesn't track? Quiet rage. So I smiled, finished my wine, and made my first transfer into Millridge stock at a 30% discount. I didn't need to shout. Not yet. Shouting gets attention. And I was done asking to be seen. I was going to make myself impossible to ignore. The meeting invite called it a touch base, which is HR code for we've already decided nothing's getting fixed, but let's smile for 30 minutes anyway. I showed up on time, hairpinned blouse, pressed glasses, sharp enough to slice through delusion. I clicked into Zoom expecting at least a half apology. Instead, Logan? Yes, the same chipper people specialist who replied to my original ticket, and a new face, Brielle, a senior retention strategist with a LinkedIn vibe so strong I could smell the digital lavender. "We're here to hold space for your experience," Brielle began. Translation: "This isn't going your way." Then the bomb. "This issue appears to be isolated to your account. Everyone else received their match." I didn't blink. "So it's just me," Logan added helpfully. "It's not personal. These systems are old. Maybe a legacy status conflict. You've been here a long time." That last line, like getting slapped with a velvet glove full of pennies. I muted myself before answering, because my unfiltered response involved fire brimstone, and the phrase, "built the damn system." Then calmly, "So?" "Just a Joanne issue." Brielle beamed like she'd won something. "Exactly. And that's great news." The next day, company-wide praise for a new hire. Nathan, Strategic forecasting, same title as me. Half the experience, twice the typos. Nathan also happened to be 30, recently transferred from Austin, and once asked me, genuinely baffled, "Wait, you were here during the recession like I'd survived a prehistoric event." I checked the public contribution log out of curiosity. Nathan got his full 401k match, every cent. No delays, no missing cycles, and that's when something in my chest iced over. This wasn't just an oversight, it was a message. So I did what women like me do when the walls start whispering. I went back to the real handbook, not the polished PDF on the intranet. The original compliance binder I kept in my home office, tucked between old W-2s and a mug filled with emergency dark chocolate. Page 37, small print yellow highlighter from 2016, alternative share acquisition provisions for legacy employees with executive tenure or equivalent designation. Most folks skipped it. Hell, most folks never qualified. But I had executive tenure unofficially. In 2014, I ran procurement solo for nearly 10 months while our VP took medical leave. That clause still applied. It was old dusty, but very much alive. A dormant option program, unmonitored and unclaimed. They thought it was obsolete. It wasn't. And just like that, the board shifted. No fanfare, no warnings, just a secure tab, a quiet message to legal, and a budget model I'd built that could veil acquisition moves inside forecasting assumptions. They thought I was just another spreadsheet. But I was the spreadsheet. Then came the email wet sock on hardwood. Subject 401k status. Final resolution. From Brielle Senior, Retention Analyst. Hi, Joanne. Just looping back after thorough internal review. We've determined your account does not qualify for further adjustment at this time. We appreciate your patience and may revisit this next fiscal year. Let us know if you have any other concerns. Team, HR, and emoji-laced hostage note. I read it 3 times. Didn't even archive it. Just dragged it into my legal folder and kept chewing on the corner of my pen, staring out the window as the neighbor's chihuahua barked at wind. That noise, more urgent than my entire HR department. So that was that. No match, no apology. But the game still very much on. Just circling back like my retirement was a recurring calendar invite they could snooze forever. Fine. Screw it. If this chapter spoke to you, don't just scroll past, hit subscribe, and be here when the next move unfolds. I logged into my old brokerage portal, the dusty one tied to our original employee stock purchase plan. Not the polished, mobile-optimized interface from the onboarding slideshow. This one was pure 2007 orange buttons, awkward font, and 2-factor authentication via email and phone. But it hadn't been shut down yet. And buried inside a dormant sub-account labeled Legacy ESQ Class C. A holdover from before the rebrand. Before HR purged half the records, before the company started posting TikToks about culture. Most people didn't even know this equity pool existed. I maxed it out. 15% of my post-tax income routed monthly into discounted stock, locked for 6 months, then mine to move. The discount, 35% off market value. Completely legal under a clause linked to my legacy status. And my silence made it invisible. While Logan and Brielle were busy scheduling pulse surveys and coordinating mental health bagel Fridays, I started paving my exit. Quiet, strategic, arithmetic with teeth. And here's where it got good. Thanks to my old stint as interim head of procurement, something HR had clearly forgotten, I still had access to select admin dashboards. Most of it was dull renewal dates, vendor SLAs, invoice logs. But buried in the noise were patterns. Like a glitchy junk drawer full of misfired warning signs. One major software vendor's license expired. They'd been operating unlicensed for 36 days. A 6-figure marketing tool bounced ACH payments 3 months in a row. An HR analytics suite, charging full freight while reporting under 12% usage. These weren't oversights. They were neon red flags, stapled to landmines. So I started logging. 1 tab per issue, missed renewals, soft contract system gaps. Each with its own code name, Crater Blindside, Drift Titanic. Because this wasn't just about my retirement anymore. I was positioning myself as the one who could forecast when this bloated corporate ship would hit its next iceberg. And the best part, they still thought I was sulking over my 401k match. Let them. I didn't need an apology. I was converting rage into leverage, and leverage matures into control. The moment I filed the Articles of Incorporation, I named it Cedar Arc Holdings. Neutral, soothing, and absolutely unstoppable. It sounded like the kind of name that sold bespoke fire pits to wine bars. But behind Cedar Arc Holdings' soft branding was a firewall of legal haze. My cousin's firm in San Diego buried the trail under enough filings to confuse even the most caffeinated forensic auditor. The LLC had one job: be the mask. While HR sent out Slack polls asking if we felt seen, I was building a shadow ledger. Clean, quiet, fully state-registered. I opened a private brokerage under Cedar Arc, set up a recurring transfer, and funneled 40% of my growing ESQ class shares through it. Not in bulk, dripped it out in 3% increments across 6 weeks. It was just slow enough to avoid pinging compliance. The company hadn't audited its alert protocols since the last director of ops left to open a kombucha brewery outside Denver. No red flags, no warnings, not even a hey, just checking. The gates were wide open. Somewhere in a forgotten hallway, a poster read, "Integrity starts with I." Step 2 began once Cedar Arc absorbed nearly half my vested shares. I reached out to Derek Marsh, a name I hadn't typed in years. We used to pull 14-hour days during the Series B scramble, eating dry almonds and joking about quitting to open a whiskey and books cafe in Oregon. Derek bailed just before the IPO. Smart man. Now he sat at a boutique VC firm in San Francisco, the kind that wore tailored vengeance and funded it well. I sent a message in code mid-cap soft spine. Fragile procurement under soft exec backing. Value doesn't match churn curve. Let's talk. No names, just bait. He called the next day. This wouldn't happen to rhyme with Stillridge, would it? I sipped my coffee. Never said that. Derek laughed. Damn it, Joanne. What are you up to? I'm not up to anything. I'm watching. And what do you see? Something bloated, distracted, and wide open. We talked for nearly an hour in layered code. I mentioned paperback kingdoms. He whispered shareholder stagger gaps. Neither of us said hostile, but the word floated there anyway, like cigar smoke in a boardroom. 2 days later, he emailed a blank prospectus template. All fields open, all quiet. Meanwhile, back in corporate circus land, an internal Slack post dropped like a bad joke board vacancy. Strategic vision opportunity. Our CFO, that smug PowerPoint in human form, held a town hall saying we'd fill internally and leverage leadership strength. Translation, they had no plan. Reality, they were scrambling. I downloaded the video, trimmed it, and saved the clip as an MP4 titled Hubris. She's 101 in my encrypted drive. Just in case. I knew exactly how exposed they were. The board charter required a 2/3 quorum to block outside offers. 2 seats had been collecting dust for years. One guy lived in Boca Raton and thought Slack was a dating app. The other sold wine kits on Instagram. So when Cedar Arc Holdings nudged its position just under the blocking threshold, no one blinked. No one asked who we were. That's the thing about chaos. It doesn't need a parade. It just needs a spreadsheet and patience. And me, I wasn't shouting. I was tightening the net. Then came the tremor. A Thursday, all-hands meeting, confetti-level buzz. Leadership in matching hoodies grinning like they'd won the startup lottery, announcing our acquisition of FlowPath AI, some buzzword buffet that promised to redefine granular efficiency at scale. Whatever that means. The CEO took the virtual stage like he'd descended from Mount Strategy. This positions us as market leaders. The industry will feel this. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. By noon, our stock popped 19%. Balloon emojis clogged Slack. Zoomers spammed GIFs of fainting celebrities. Me, I adjusted the position cap on Cedar Arc. Because I'd seen it coming. Not magic, just procurement back channels. Devin had secured the term sheet before the board even reviewed it. Flowpath's books were a wildfire in disguise. Their burn rate unsustainable, but the euphoria useful. Right after the sugar rush came the shadow. A Schedule 13D filing hit the wire. Clean. Anonymous. Devin and I had prepped a third-party buyer just like we planned. The tender offer was formal now. Double market value, public and calm. Dense legalese, sure. But underneath the suits and signatures, it was a hand on the company's throat. And I was the one who placed it there. No names, just holding companies and shell layers stacked like nesting dolls, all tracing back to no one. But the intent crystal clear to anyone with board-level clearance. Someone was circling. By morning, HR hit the panic button. An all-staff email subject line screaming in bold, urgent. Do not sell shares to outside entities. We've become aware of an unauthorized inquiry into company equity. This violates internal policy and may lead to disciplinary action. Do not engage. Do not forward. It reeked of desperation. I sipped from my chipped fiscal year Slayer mug as it landed in my inbox. No flinch, no smile. I simply dragged it into my encrypted drive and labeled it HR Threat Jo1.pdf. While they scrambled to decode the threat, I'd already moved. My shares were safe nested neatly in Cedar Arc. The buyer's offer through Devin's firm included a single buried clause. Entities or individuals with historical equity discrepancies may abstain from governance votes until resolution. Translation. The same clause HR used to dismiss me now made them legally powerless to block the deal. Back at headquarters, the CFO began to sweat. He called an emergency finance sync, fired off an audit request, and tried to trace internal transfers. Too bad the brokerage logs hadn't been updated in 2 fiscal years. Half lived in an AWS bucket no one touched. The rest, broken API keys. He pinged legal. They sent a one-line response. We were not informed of any tender activity. That afternoon, I got a soft knock at my digital door, a ping from the CFO's assistant. Hey, Joanne, just wondering if you've noticed any unusual share activity. Totally routine. Just want to be thorough. I didn't reply. Instead, I cataloged my notes into a binder. Section A, procurement vulnerabilities. Section B, HR failures. Section C, board exposure. Section D, legal immunity channels. No edits. No deletions. Because I wasn't hiding tracks. I wanted them to find the map after the explosion. Then came the olive branch, sprayed with desperation. Subject, Quick Connect, Deborah Fulton, VP of People and Culture. Hi, Joanne. Hope you're well. Would love to pick your brain on morale trends during this transitional time. You're such a respected voice here. We'd really value your insight. The corporate version of, we shoved you into a ditch, could you help us climb out now that it's full of snakes? I stared at the message for a solid minute before laughing. Low, dry, the kind of laugh that knows exactly when the bridge collapsed and didn't say a word. Still, I accepted the call. Why not? The final act deserved a spotlight. They scheduled for Thursday. I joined 3 minutes late, just enough to make Deborah sweat. She greeted me with the brittle smile of a woman who just found termites behind her live, laugh, love wall art. Her camera was on. Mine wasn't. Joanne, so glad you could make time. She chirped, voice fluttering on the edge of panic. Wanted a quick confidential touch base, nothing formal. She tiptoed around it. We're sensing unrest following the market news. Some folks are confused. And well, they remember your leadership. There it was, the pitch. The same HR team that ghosted my 401k concerns, handed me canned excuses and told me I wasn't a priority, now wanted me to calm their panicked employees. I leaned into the mic and said sweetly, I thought I wasn't in the loop anymore. Must have been a clerical error. Her smile stuttered, then rebooted. Of course. That's why we're reaching out now to rebuild that trust. The call ended 10 minutes later, with vague nods and promises to be in touch. Less than a day later, an offer hit my inbox: consulting agreement, shareholder communication strategy, a modest honorarium. An NDA. A contract that read like a bribe from someone who thinks a scented candle can fix a house fire. I didn't reply, didn't comment, Didn't even annotate. I just forwarded it to my attorney with one line, "They still don't get it." Then I poured 2 fingers of scotch open Section F of my binder, psychological leverage, and updated my notes. HR exposed, comms cracking, legal absent power, migrating outside the wind picked up. A neighbor's trash bin tumbled down the street like a warning. Inside, I sat still listening. The buyer went public that Monday. At 6:02 a.m. Eastern, a surgical SEC filing went live. Cedar Arc Holdings LLC proposes tender offer for all outstanding Class A shares of Millridge Logistics at $64.20 per share, a 100% premium over current market value. It hit the newswire like a brick through glass. Slack channels melted. The company subreddit turned into a digital war room. Theories flew: Chinese capital shadow hedge funds, big tech trying to scoop up a rising star. No one guessed a 61-year-old woman in Boise with a VPN and a long memory. By 9:00 a.m., the board was in full panic. Emergency Zooms, unshaved executives, sweat-ringed collars. One director couldn't unmute. The CEO's background was still set to a looping animation of seagulls. It would have been hilarious if it weren't my company imploding in real time. Bryce Whitmore, our CFO, the same man who once called me a relic from pre-automation scaling, slammed a spreadsheet onto the virtual table. "There's no way this is organic," he barked. No insider would sabotage their own equity. Of course I wasn't in that meeting. I was at home slicing peaches into a ceramic bowl, watching the delayed live stream of the board's public queue and sipping coffee. Bryce was demanding IT pull equity logs, trying to freeze internal transactions retroactively. Too late. Internal equity movement only synced weekly. The legal lockout kicked in 48 hours, too late. By the time his freeze request hit, Cedar Arc held 12. 4% of the company acquired slowly over 3 quarters. Fully legal, fully disclosed, and fully untouchable. No policies violated, no NDAs breached, no red flags triggered. Because I didn't break in. I'd never left. They were so obsessed with disruption, they forgot to defend their structure. No updated bylaws, no poison pill, no covenant protections. Their governance model was more outdated than HR's onboarding slide deck. Bryce scrambled to stall, claiming the board was reviewing options with counsel. But behind the scenes, the walls were caving in. Employees who'd endured years of burnout and bottom-tier raises were now forwarding screenshots of the offer with subject lines like, "Finally, about damn time, let her buy it. Is this real?" My phone lit up with texts from people I hadn't heard from in years. Former coworkers' old project leads, even someone who once stole my stapler at a retreat in Tahoe. Every message said the same thing, dressed in different fonts of disbelief. "Was this you?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That night, Millridge issued a soft denial press release, thick with CEO speak evaluating strategic alternatives. Translation: they were cornered and stalling. I reviewed the terms one last time. My name wasn't on the tender offer, but my fingerprints everywhere. Hidden in the acquisition model, woven into the entity web. Embedded in footnotes no one in legal would read until it was far too late. I didn't toast. I didn't celebrate. I just stared out the window at the streetlight flickering on, listened to the hum of distant traffic, and thought about the cost of silence, how it strips you bare when given to the wrong people. And now, I wasn't giving them anything. At 11:42 p.m., the email landed. That cursed hour when panic puts on its best shoes and pretends to be reasonable. Subject: urgent. Equity support. Clarification from Deborah Fulton, VP of People and Culture. Hi, Joanne. Apologies for the late message. We're receiving many questions about the Cedar Arc offer. Some confusion around the process. Would you be open to guiding HR on next steps? Also, is there any risk to pensions if employees don't tender? We'd really value your wisdom here. The tone was half bad, cologne, half borrowed regret. Help us. Wise elder. Fix the fire we ignored while you burned. I let it sit overnight. Let her feel the weight of her own incompetence. At 9:07 a.m., after a walk, 2 eggs in 5 minutes staring at my basil plant, I replied all. No greeting, no message, just a single attachment. Tender process FAQ. Millridge shareholders.pdf. 10 pages, plain English. Crystal clear. Page 6, in red bold font, inside a yellow box. Note employees with unresolved historical match discrepancies are ineligible to participate in shareholder block votes on tender decisions. Translation. You didn't match me. You don't matter now. That clause had always been in the handbook. Just waiting. The very match HR withheld from me, the one they deemed not worth fixing, was now the legal blade that sliced out their voice in the boardroom. Poetic if you like your poetry, ice cold and surgically precise. 50 minutes later, Slack threads lit up like an electrical fire. Someone posted the clause. Someone else dropped a side-by-side of my missing match history and my silent transfers into Cedar Arc. Then, an engineer who got a culture coin instead of a raise last quarter posted a meme of a guillotine with the caption, "All matches are final." The CFO Bryce tried to host an emergency town hall. He fumbled through his slides, referenced a clause that didn't exist, and called it all a technical misunderstanding. His Zoom froze mid-sweat. Nobody cared. The dots were connecting, and my name was at the center of every one. The woman they dismissed as overpaid, outdated, and expendable had built a paper trail so clean it sparkled. I hadn't yelled. I hadn't pleaded. I just documented everything while they deleted my relevance. Now, they faced a hostile tender. They couldn't block a buyer. They couldn't trace. And a wave of shareholder unrest they couldn't outmaneuver. And the worst part, they had no one to blame but the woman they refused to match. It ended, not with a bang, but with a checkbox. At 8:03 a.m. on a cloudless Tuesday, the board filed a Form 8K. Millridge Logistics had accepted the Cedar Arc Holdings tender. The filing wrapped it in silk, a strategic move to ensure long-term value. Inside the building, everyone knew the truth. They didn't vote. They folded. 3 board members resigned by Friday. 2 took exit packages. The CEO clung to his seat until the new owners replaced him with a polished fixer who smiled like a shark and spoke fluent EBITDA. Bryce gone. His LinkedIn said, seeking new challenges. Deborah from HR reassigned to wellness strategy, which mostly meant managing a Slack channel about deep breathing and hydration. Her calendar was blank. I never attended a board meeting, never raised my voice. I didn't need to. Cedar Arc Holdings. My quiet little LLC now owned the company that once told me I didn't matter. 6 months later, after the restructuring was complete and Millridge had been trimmed, buffed, and dressed up for resale, I made the final move. I flipped the asset. Sold my position to a global tech fund for 3 times what I paid. No headlines, no interviews. Just a quiet, perfect transfer executed through a boutique law firm in La Jolla. My cut enough to retire comfortably 3 times over. But I didn't post about it. Didn't launch a podcast. Didn't write a blog on resilience or corporate trauma. I bought a small place in Santa Barbara instead. White walls, lemon trees. A view so peaceful, forgiveness felt redundant. And one warm afternoon with the sunlight pouring across the patio and condensation sweating down my glass, I opened my tablet. Millridge acquired in private buyout leadership shifts expected. No mention of my name. No trace of the woman who had rewritten their ending from a kitchen counter while they ignored her emails. And that was just fine. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. From Deborah F., VP of Wellness. Subject, quick question, transition forms. Hi, Joanne, wondering if you could spare 50 minutes to walk us through the pension rollover steps. I stared at the message for a moment, then flipped the phone over, face down, not my problem anymore. I got everything they once said I didn't deserve the match, the influence, the control, and just enough silence to enjoy it all. The resale cold, the sky lit in soft gold. And me, I smiled. Not from pride, but from precision. Because vengeance, when done right, doesn't scream. It signs the closing documents, then sips in peace. If you've made it this far, thank you. Really. Because this story, it wasn't just about equity, or revenge, or paperwork. It was about being erased and quietly refusing to stay that way. If you've ever felt overlooked at work, If someone ever made you question your value because of your age, your calm, or your quiet power, I hope this hit home. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't burn bridges. I built something beneath them. And when the moment came, I didn't knock. I owned the door. If any part of this story reminded you of your own, leave a comment. I want to hear it. Your story matters, whether someone listened in the boardroom or not. And if you're still stuck in a place that doesn't see your worth, let this be your reminder you're not invisible. You're underestimated. And that is leverage waiting to mature. Here's my advice. Keep your records. Keep your dignity. And keep your damn receipts. You never know when the system will need correcting, and you just might be the one to do it. And if you want more stories like this, if you believe quiet power still deserves a voice, hit that subscribe button. Not because it boosts the channel, but because it says you see people like me. People like you. Let's build something that doesn't just entertain, but reminds people what strength really looks like when it sits still and waits for the right time. Because justice, it's not always loud, but when it lands, it echoes. Joanne.